church, I worship like a dog at the shrine of your life. I'll tell you my sins and you can sharpen your knife. Offer me that deathless death, the good God, let me give you my life.
Hi guys, welcome to Truth Talkin Thursday. This is Jim, I'm Jane. It's a beautiful day out here today, so we decided to be out on my deck, and my son just mowed the lawn, so it smells nice. I mentioned last week about the book I read. I think it's called Fierce Women, and it's about women being a soft warrior. I have a resistance to organized religion, and I think probably this book kind of touched on that. When I first started reading it, I thought, wow, like did I ever need to read this? And maybe I really did, and that's why the second part of it kind of got me, maybe. I'm not really sure. I'll have to think that through a little more. But the second part of it, it kind of focused on, and I can't think of all the verses in the Bible that she quoted, but a lot of it was about wives being submissive to your husbands, and wives being the helper and the supporter, and taking her place in that way. And it also touched quite a few times on lesbian relationships and how wrong that was according to God's plan. And I'm not here to state or argue my opinion in any of those things in any way. I don't think my mind is clear on most of those things. I know how I was raised, and as I was raised, I would have to say, yes, those things are wrong. But I haven't sorted my way through all of those thoughts yet. But one thing that really kind of bothered me was about the little section it had on abuse. And that's kind of something that's been kind of close to me, just because of what I've been through. I don't know so much about lesbian relationships, or I don't have experience with that. But abuse, I do. And she made a comment in there about the church should be your safe haven if there's abuse going on. Would you agree with that?
I think it can be a safe haven to some degree. I don't think it should be your only one. But I think it can be, certainly. It's your strength, it's your support. I guess it depends on how involved you are, how committed you are to the religion and the teachings and all this kind of stuff. I always I have trouble with absolutes. So if that's absolutely the only place where I can go, that's problematic for me. I need to have a variety of different places that I can go to for a variety of different situations I find myself in. This guy may not. I've always kind of found it difficult to understand how Catholic priests can counsel couples never having been married. I understand that they're the voice of God. I understand all of that kind of stuff. We could talk about that in a different forum, in a different context. But the point I'm making here is I can't and I don't trust just one source of information, especially when that source is a little sketchy on some background experience of their own.
Well, and I think the other thing that kind of stuck out to me was the lack of knowledge that, and I don't just want to pick on churches. I don't want it to seem like that's what I'm saying at all. You know what? You don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
And the bottom line is you can't be angry at somebody or a group or an organization for not taking a stand on something that they don't know anything about. And I feel like, to me, places like churches, I guess in my head I was thinking, maybe some of the church elders, or whatever you want to call them, some of the people that are responsible, maybe some of them should start taking some classes or some courses on abuse, and so that they can have places to point people. Mm-hmm. Instead of just saying, you're being emotional and you're mm-hmm. Like, to me, I guess I was just thinking, like, there's no shame in a group saying, I'm sorry, we just don't, we feel out of our league here, but we really think you should go for help. possibly, so here's an area, here's an area, here's an area, here's an area. Like, I know for myself, one thing that I was really blown away by, and maybe most people know this, but Port Cares is a wonderful organization for help in some of those ways. Like, I could not believe all of the services and help that they provided me with during that time for me. I mean, that was a totally just tumultuous time for me, because it was a totally new experience being on my own. I had never ever been alone in my life, and here I was 40 years old and alone. And, they provided me with some free courses, some computer training courses. They helped me write a resume. Actually, they found me the house that I'm renting, and, like, they vouch for the landlord. Like, that's a safe landlord. It's not somebody that's going to abuse you or take advantage of you. Or, I mean, those landlords have their name in there for a reason. And I was really blown away by that. I thought that was wonderful. The help that they were offering. Yep.
I think one of the things that bothers me, going back a couple of minutes there to the church being sort of a soul support mechanism. Part of the problem for me, and part of the concern for me, is when you do go to your church, and this happens. I think it still happens a fair amount in some congregations or in some faiths, but you get punished if you don't agree with the approach that they give you. And rather than be free to think through your own solutions, because we are all individuals at some point. I just happen to go to this church over here. We'll use the church thing, and I too don't want to get into just blaming churches, but it seems like it happens there more than other places.
And it seems like the most unlikely spot that it should happen.
Well, in their efforts to be called Christians, I think they're very, very un-Christian-like. And it's to me, and maybe it's just me, but and we could segue into 5 different places from this one, but it's the whole idea to me of professing to be quote unquote a Christian is to behave like a Christian, and we don't, as Christians, we're not in a position to judge other people. I think when
the
Christ
Bible,
came here,
if you're going to take the Bible, he made that very clear: judge not,
lest you be judged.
Right, because that's how you're going to be judged, the way you judge someone else.
So so that's another reason for me why I don't kind of get myself narrowed down to just one sort of faith, and because if and how often do we hear it? People come talking at a coffee hour after the service is over, and it's, oh, look at that, isn't that awful? Oh, look what she's wearing, or look what he did. and it seems petty, and it is. It's terribly petty, but I just don't understand. I don't see that as being sort of a Christian thing. What happens if a homeless guy comes in and sits down? And this happened in our church a couple of weeks ago. He wasn't quite homeless, but he was the next best thing to it, sort of thing. And come in and sat down in a pew. And, I heard somebody afterwards saying, well, why is he here? And I heard somebody else say, because he can be. And I thought, good for you.
Well, yeah.
Good for you. Stand up and say, that, because that's what we need to do. And if we're professing to be Christians, so I mean, going back to what you're saying, when you were being abused, it was your fault because you must have been doing something wrong.
Yeah.
How disingenuous is that? How horrible is that to hear from the support group that you're supposed to rely on as being somebody that's going to put their arm around you and hug you and say, we love you, sweetheart, don't you worry about it, this will work out and we'll help you.
But in all fairness, my take on all of that is that there isn't an awareness out there.
No.
It isn't talked about as freely as it could be.
Or should
the ramifications of abuse and what it does to people and how it changes them are huge. And it's no reflection on the abuser, the abusee, or the people that surround them. It is what it is. There's no need to blame. Just fix what can be fixed. Point somebody in the right direction.
Yes.
And I think that's it in a nutshell.
That's more helpful than anything.
Yeah.
And because it tells me that, don't you worry, we got your back. and this is going to be okay, and you know, here's where you can get some help, the help you need. I mean, how many people in that church congregation, yours, mine, any of them, have any background basically in any of this stuff?
They don't, and that's a good thing.
So how can they be telling us
That's not
what
a bad
to do?
thing.
Yeah.
But I really like what you said about the homeless man and somebody standing up and saying he's there because he can be. I think that not enough of us take a stand for what we think and believe to be right. And I think that is hugely important.
Yeah.
We need not be afraid of punishment. We need not be afraid of anything except being true to ourselves. To me, that, you mentioned Christian. That is the basis for a Christian, in my mind. Like, yes, we can be selfish humans, but we've talked about this before. There is a part of us, a core, basic part, that is put there for a reason.
Yeah. And how else are we supposed to learn if we don't make mistakes?
Exactly. It's not a mistake. It's a learning event.
It's a learning event. That's right.
Anyway.
I want to stop learning. That's what.
No, you don't.
I seem
You'd
to have a
be
lot of
bored.
these learning events.
I'm done. I'm just done.
I'm done with this learning event stuff.
Anyway, I feel like I talked mostly, and I'm sorry.
Good.
So,
No, don't be apologizing for that.
in a nutshell, I feel better.
Good. Well, this was your rant day.
So I'm sorry if that did come across like a
No,
rant.
no,
I'm
no.
not meaning to reflect on anybody. I truly believe we do the best we can at the time.
Here.
So have a great week, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for stopping by.